just get a good picture of how things are working here. Check our little connections and bit rates and things, so you guys know what we're talking about. Seems to be going well. Wow, so today's huge. And it's also possible that this didn't just, become known today. Certain aspects of this, no, not, or to certain people, certainly. But it does qualify as Iran's news, and I guess when I read it, it's actually pretty major Iran's news. When I first read it, I'd kind of forgotten that I'd been doing Iran's news every time something happened in Iran's land. And then I remembered and I went, oh, wait a minute, this is a major Iran's news right here. So we're going to be talking about the news. If anyone's wondering, I am still attempting to get Tien Ho's new book. I've reached out to a couple of contacts that I have online to see if I can get an ebook copy of it sent over. And I'm kind of investigating how I might be able to do that and just get that new book, because it actually looks really fascinating. And I actually have some pretty high hopes for it because, like I said, you guys, here's the thing. In a quote solved case, we actually now know what's true and what's not to some extent, and we can kind of get closer to real truths by examining the known facts rather than examining our own speculative theories and then coming up with more theories, which is what unsolved cases have the tendency to encourage from us. But this being said, the assistant DA of Sacramento has released his book, People versus the Golden State Killer. And, of course, that's a marketing ploy because nobody, Golden State Killer, that's gay. This person is the East Area Rapist Original Night Stalker, and he doesn't get ever called that on my show, Golden State Killer. So, but the book's called that, and, Ho's got to make a living somehow, Tien Ho. So, I understand that sounded like a bad joke, but I promise you guys it was an accident. Tien Ho needs to make a living too. So if his publicist, or if he decided that he's going to call this guy Golden State Killer to make it more recognizable for the public, then that's fine. This guy's published a book about the investigation, the prosecution, and the interrogation, and this kind of thing. And I like the concept behind this because, unlike many other books about unsolved crimes or crimes in general, it's not just the author spitballing retarded ideas they saw on Reddit. It's actually someone with insider case knowledge, someone who was present in the room when the individual was interrogated and stuff. So let's push forward. Talk about what the actual news is here. And everyone look to the left of your screen. You can now see the mask get removed, and there he is. All right. So we do have some Iran's news for you guys. Let's put him like right here. Iran's news. I guess I like it being like right here, because what ends up happening is there's this just bad looking gap that forms. So we'll do like that. Okay. So I'm going to do a window capture. We're going to talk about some valuable reporting from the media that I actually approve of, and then some more bullshit from Harvey Keitel. Or not Harvey Keitel. What's the guy's name that works at the fucking... What's the guy's name that works at TMZ? Harvey Tardo or something like that? What's his fucking name? Harvey Wolfstein or something like that? I don't remember his last name. But we're going to talk about what TMZ got from all this. And I guarantee you it's going to be different than what everyone else in the world got from all this, because TMZ is perverted. But it is useful information, so we're going to cover it. Okay. Window capture. Oops. All right, here we go. This is from People magazine, advertising the release of the new book. I'm going to make it smaller so that you guys can see it, but you also can see, it's a radio show. So, all right, here we go. How was the Irans finally caught A new book by the prosecutor responsible takes us inside. Exclusive. In an exclusive excerpt from The People vs. Bleep, prosecutor Tien Ho goes behind the scenes of the interrogation of Junk Food Joey. Need to know. So this is for people who basically, I guess they say we need to know, so let's read it. In a new book, The People vs. Bleep, by Tien Ho, the current district attorney of Sacramento recounts his harrowing and exhilarating experience as the lead prosecutor responsible for capturing and prosecuting Junk Food Joey. Below, in an exclusive excerpt shared with People, we see the moment Junk Food Joey is first interrogated. The People vs. the Bleep goes on sale November 11. So this book just came out a week ago. Like a dance, a police interrogation requires finesse, timing, and a precise choreographed set of steps and moves. A skilled interrogator needs to have the right feel and intuition for the moment. It helps if you have a partner who is willing to talk. As a common law enforcement tactic, perpetrators are placed in an interrogation room and made to sit and wait a long time before anyone speaks to them. This allows them to wallow in their predicament, their minds running wild with fear and anxiety. They may fidget, talk to themselves or to us, or get up and pace about the room to break the monotony. Sometimes, suspects fall asleep at the table before being awakened by the loud clanging of the metal door opening and detectives walking in. Junk Food Joey, the Bleep, or Earons, was unusual, and so was his interrogation. At 5:20 p.m. on April 24th, 2018, an hour after the fugitive apprehension team known as the Body Snatchers. Okay, I just wanted to point out, so you can see why these guys don't go by their acronym. Don't you think they could have come up with a better name? I mean, even Fugitive Apprehension Squad or Fugitive Apprehension Unit would have been better. But we have to go with Fugitive Apprehension Team, known as FAT. Arrested him. Investigators placed him in a small interrogation room at the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department headquarters. Junk Food Joey, wearing a t-shirt, cargo shorts, and tube socks, sat down in a plastic chair at the table and in the middle of the room. He was left to sit alone until 6:52 p.m. For an entire hour and a half, he sat motionless. Okay. His mouth agape, periodically taking in loud gulps of air, but otherwise never moving an inch or even looking around. Junk Food Joey did not appear particularly menacing. He was thirsty, licking his lips constantly and making smacking sounds with his mouth. Upon re-entering the interrogation room after the prolonged wait, Detective Sergeant, I didn't know that he goes by Kenny, but apparently he goes by Kenny. So I've been calling him Ken Clark for like a year. Detective Sergeant Kenneth Clarkenstein asked the suspect, "Do you want some Dr. Pepper?" Get ready for this. Officers had found Dr. Pepper at several of the Earons' crime scenes, and since none of the victims drank Dr. Pepper, police believed he had brought it with him. So look, guys, this has never been known before, as far as I know. This is the first time that we have ever heard that Junk Food Joey, not surprisingly, drinks Dr. Pepper. We had heard some stuff from, Visalia guys, or from Exeter guys, I should say. And we had heard some stuff, well, obviously that's where the name Junk Food Joey comes from, that he likes his sweets and that kind of stuff. And but we'd never really heard that Dr. Pepper exclusively or specifically was found at Eron's crime scenes. To my knowledge, this is new information. And what I will say, I want you guys to think back and remember to classified elements of the offender's modus operandi that was withheld from the public. There was a lot of speculation as to what were the investigators hiding from us. It was something that was a part of his modus operandi that was never released. And there was tons of speculation, up to and including some people saying that Junk Food Joey was defecating on the carpets and the floors of the houses, or that he was defecating in the water tank of toilets. I'm not sure where these rumors came from, but, the internet. And they were probably just trying to rub salt in the wound. There's no evidence that Junk Food Joey ever defecated in the homes of his victims. That's just been claimed on the internet. We have absolutely no verification of that. What we do see is that Dr. Pepper was left at the scene of quote, several of the Irons' crime scenes. And what I want to know, actually, at this point is how many of those crime scenes was Dr. Pepper brought to? If Dr. Pepper was brought to 48 rapes out of 50, then you have to begin to ask the question, is it possible that some of these rapes were not D'Angelo? And this question's gonna come up as we go forward into the TMZ section of this. But that's always been, something considered. That no one has ever said that there's absolutely no question in our mind. All of the sexual assaults, the canonical Irons timeline are with 100% certainty. I'd bet my life they're all D'Angelo. If they do say that, then they're probably just parroting the same dogma. We really actually don't know that for sure. But we can pretty reasonably conclude that most likely, if it made it all the way through the canonical timeline up until 2013, like when Sudden Terror I think came out in 2011 or something like that. If it made it to Sudden Terror as a canonical East Area Rapist crime, then it probably was an East Area Rapist crime. But that isn't necessarily, I wouldn't bet my life on that, and I certainly wouldn't advise others to just accept claims like that with absolutely no skepticism and have no, sliver of reservation about things that might not have been D'Angelo that were getting linked to D'Angelo. They could have been either copycats or they could have been similar type offenses that were, erroneously linked to EAR. It isn't Zodiac where we have someone writing to the press telling us which ones are his. With Zodiac, we had the offender told us what he did. With EAR, he was attempting to hide which crimes were his, which ones weren't, for a good portion of his crime spree. Now, not all of it. Obviously, in late 1977, EAR was claiming responsibility for some of his crimes, up to and including calling the sheriff's department and saying, "This is the East Area Rapist, I'm going to fuck again tonight, be careful." When that was December 2nd, 1977. But there is still room for the investigative spirit of curiosity in terms of which crimes are Irons and which ones simply have always looked like Irons but might not necessarily be him. That's why I want to know, how frequently was Dr. Pepper found at these crime scenes? Because if the Dr. Pepper was found at 49 out of 52 rapes, then maybe 3 of those rapes aren't his. If it appears that he brings it every time, and there are some times that we don't see it, then we have to ask why, and then we look at the modus operandi of the offender responsible for those particular crimes and determine, is this really the same guy? There you go. After Junk Food Joey's arrest, the Sheriff's Department and the FBI conducted a search of his home and found several cases of the soft drink. So this is more of that stuff. Guys, we were not told a lot of stuff, and I think that this is just... we can make a big deal out of this, and it is a big deal. It's the first time that we've got any unknown information in this case since forever. Of course, the identity of the offender is huge. But, since 2018, nobody has ever given us holdback evidence in this case. It's extremely rare that we're told anything new in the Irons case, and that's why this is a big deal, that we're learning that Junk Food Joey was bringing Dr. Pepper to crime scenes. No reply, no movement, no acknowledgement. "Joe, do you want some Dr. Pepper?" Clark asked again. Still nothing. Junk Food Joe. The beginning of an interrogation represents the most vulnerable and disorienting moment for a suspect. Questions run through their minds. How did I get here? We know how he got here, okay? What charges am I facing? He knows what charges he's facing. What evidence do they have against me? His semen. Being offered Dr. Pepper repeatedly fed into D'Angelo's paranoia that law enforcement wanted to collect his DNA from the can. What he didn't know was that we had already collected it from his trash. Yeah, I mean, who knows what D'Angelo actually knew. It was collected from multiple places. There were surreptitious DNA samples taken from the parking lot of a Hobby Lobby where they swabbed the door handle of Junk Food Joey's truck. And they found a mixed a mixed sample of DNA at that crime in that truck. And it had like a couple male profiles, and the strongest male profile of that sample was consistent with the genetic material of the East Area Rapist. So then, going forward from there, investigators said, well, we want something better. So let's do a surreptitious DNA collection on his trash. They went to his trash, and they pulled a Kleenex that he had blown his nose in, and that sample was consistent with the DNA of the East Area Rapist, up to an exclusionary probability of 1 in 17 septillion individuals. So for every 17 septillion people ever born, there would be 2 East Area Rapist DNAs, or the DNA of Junk Food Joey. So obviously we know Junk Food Joey is the AR at that point. Clark began the interrogation by advising D'Angelo, or Junk Food Joey, of his Miranda rights. Watch this. This is crazy. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Do you understand? The suspect remained motionless and mute. Kenny Clarketh repeated the warning. Still nothing. A few hours before, Junk Food Joey D had been cooking a roast in the oven. Now he found himself being interrogated. Knowing that curiosity is an itch suspects can't resist scratching, detectives will encourage suspects to start asking questions or talk. Clarketh asked, would you like to know why you are here? I would be happy to share that with you. I'll give you a few minutes to think about it. You don't want to press too hard at the beginning of an interview, as the suspect might shut down the conversation. The worst case scenario for any detective is when a suspect invokes their right to remain silent or asks for an attorney. But this situation represented a close second. Junk Food Joey D didn't want to dance. Walking back to his office where other detectives were watching a television monitor with a live feed, Clark could only mutter to himself, "Fuck!" He had toiled all these years to catch and interview the Irons, and now Junk Food Joey D wouldn't say a word. Clark told his partners, inside, he's dying to find out what we know. Let's give him a few minutes to stew on it. I'm not convinced that Junk Food Joey D was really that curious about what they knew. Because remember, guys, this case was fucking huge. You had thousands of people online, of which maybe 100 of them were like, maybe 100, probably not, probably like 20 of them were good researchers who had dug up a really good picture of what the fuck was going on and then released that information to the public. And so I'm sure that Junk Food Joey D knew exactly what they knew about him. And he might have been playing the game, you know, that, I don't know what's going on, but he's full of it. He did that because he had no other options. His DNA is inside the murder victims. His semen is inside the murder victim. He can't run from that. So he knows he's fucked. But he knows he's not going to just give up. Watch what he does next, because it's going to show you just how crafty Junk Food Joey D really is. Every minute seemed like an eternity, the clock on the wall moving in slow motion. At 7 p.m., Kenneth Clarketh walked back into the interrogation room and asked Junk Food Joey D, would you like to know what's going on? What have I done? For the first time in almost 2 hours, Junk Food Joey D spoke. Here, perhaps, was the opening, the crack everyone was waiting for. So they did a lot of drugs there. Everyone was waiting for crack. That's what I've learned here. I will tell you, all right, Clark replied. I'm going to read you your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say may be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to an attorney and have one present with you before and while being questioned. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you free of charge before any questioning if you want. Junk Food Joey DEA crawled back into his shell and stared at the wall. Undeterred, Clark began talking about the Irons case non-stop for the next 25 minutes. Same. I'm with you, Clark. Let's shoot for 25 hours. Although Junk Food Joey D sat there in silence, it was clear the wheels were turning in his head. They found me. They know. How do I get out of this? Watch this. He actually comes up with a way. He had been caught and cornered before, but this time he was strapped to a chair, having lost all control. Yeah, I mean, he had been cornered before. He'd been cornered as the Visalia ransacker and as, the East Area rapist and as the original Night Stalker, and each time, not so much as ONS, but sort of, because he did get in a bike chase with Stan Lowe. A short while later, alone in the room, junk food Joey DeEro began talking to himself. I've done nothing, I've dreamed about him, unintelligible mumbling. I was strong. Back in the monitoring room, Clarketh wondered aloud, who the hell is him? He sensed something was about to happen. He went back into the interrogation room. Seizing the moment, Clarketh pressed aggressively, sitting down across from D'Angelo. He lobbed the first grenade. Brian and Katie Maggiore, who were murdered in 1979. That grenade just fell totally short of its target. Brian and Katie Maggiore were not murdered in 1979. They were murdered in 1978, and they were murdered on February 2nd of 78. So almost as far away from 1979 as you can get the previous year. So I'm not sure if this is a typo on behalf of People Magazine. I'm not sure if this... Because I know that Ken Clark knows better. I've heard his interviews on YouTube. He knows his shit with the Irons. He certainly knows his shit with the Maggiore double murder. So I know that he didn't make this mistake. That's not what Clark said. Clark did not say 1979. He either... said that as some kind of weird ruse to maybe trip up Junk Food Joey D, which I think is very unlikely, or Thien Ho made a mistake, or People Magazine made a mistake. And the only way to really know is to read the book. So I'm going to have to get that and report back to you guys who fucked this up. Because the Maggiores were not killed in 1979. They were gunned down and executed. We have DNA evidence tying you to their murders. Check this out. So people were speculating, and they were saying... Is there DNA in the Maggiore murders that we don't know about? Or was Ken Clark lying to D'Angelo? We don't know. We just don't know the answer to that question. That information exists somewhere in the Holdback archives of the Irons case, and it would be groundbreaking if we found out that they actually do have DNA evidence in the Maggiore murders, because goodbye Arch's theory. I mean, Arch's theory is already donezo's by the time you learn about the hang-up calls on La Alegria and Malaga Way and stuff. Like, all these hang-up calls that are happening until 8 p.m. that night before the murders happen obviously demonstrate to us that it's an East Area rapist crime. We know it's an East Area rapist crime. But if there's DNA in that case, then that's a whole other ballgame. See how we're looking on bit rates and things like that. Everything's good. Junk Food Joey D snapped out of his silence. I don't remember anything you've said. I don't remember any of that. I've done nothing. Please let me go home. I don't remember any of that. I've done nothing. The panic in his voice was unmistakable. Clark laid it on thick. These are pictures of Brian and Katie. They were young. They had their whole lives ahead of them. They were walking their dog that night when you killed them. It's so tragic. Barely looking at the photos, Junk Food Joey Didi said, I don't remember any of those people or any of that. I want to talk to my wife. Look at what he's doing, guys. So here's the thing. In a police interrogation, you're given the right to invoke access to counsel, access to legal representation. If the interrogators do not stop asking you questions once you have invoked your right to representation, then the contents of that interview are no longer admissible in court, as far as I understand. And there might be some loopholes to this. Junk Food Joey, perhaps misunderstanding or misinterpreting this law, much like with Keefe D and the proffer agreement situation in Tupac, it's possible that Junk Food Joey D thought that by getting those interrogators to violate his right to representation, that he could get the case thrown out. So he's very crafty, but he's also stupid. There was no chance when he was arrested by the FAT team, the Fugitive Apprehension Team, or the Body Snatcher Fats. When he was apprehended by those guys, it was over for him. His DNA, the day that he left his semen at the Smith crime scene, was the day that he sealed his fate. But the day that he was arrested, April 24th, 2018, it was done. There was nothing that he was going to do that was ever going to get this thing thrown out on mistrial. The politics alone would never have let that happen. Okay? So he says, I want to talk to my wife. And Clarkieth replied, we might be able to make that happen, but not right now. Junk Food Joey continues. My wife's an attorney. I need to talk to her if I'm in trouble. I need to talk to my wife. I'm in trouble. Yeah, please. Clark's heart sank when he heard the dreaded A word, attorney. The request contained some ambiguity, however. Was he specifically invoking his right to an attorney, or was he simply asking for his wife who happened to be an attorney? Well, I would say, he says, I need to talk to her if I'm in trouble. That means he's attempting to invoke counsel, but he's attempting to invoke counsel in a sneaky way so that they continue to interrogate him, and he's hoping he can get this whole thing thrown out because he's a man backed into a corner with desperation and no longer has a .38 caliber revolver to help him, like is his normal thing. Normally, when Junk Food Joey is backed into a corner, he just shoots you in the face and runs, and it works for him for 40 years. Knowing his window to obtain a statement was closing, Kenneth Clarketh pressed on. Well, let me go see if I can, if we even know where she's at. Doesn't know how to not end a sentence in a preposition, but that's okay. But I'll see if I can find somebody. See if your wife's available. He then left D'Angelo alone again. By the way, it's like law enforcement culture to end sentences with the word at. The cops always say, like, well, where's he at? They do that a lot. It's their thing. The cops love that shit. Okay. I see you guys. Alone in the room, Junk Food Joey D began murmuring to himself as detectives in the monitoring room leaned in and strained to hear every word. Through clenched teeth, he whispered. I mean, is that really what? Did he really do that? Maybe he whispered through clenched teeth. It's possible, I guess. But I think that this could be more sensationalism. I had no choice. That's why I don't see that happening. Anyway, I got stronger, stronger, stronger. He tried to. Unintelligible. His voice trailed off. What's up with the fucking microphones in there, man? There's nothing I can say on this microphone that's unintelligible. So something is wrong with your guys' microphones. He tried to get me and trying to take apart my fucking TV and my bicycle. You guys can hear what I'm saying. It says he tried to get me and take apart my TV and my bicycle. You can hear that. So there's something wrong with your guys' microphones. The detective decided to change things up and offered Junk Food Joey D another dance partner, Sergeant Michelle Hendricks. She was a 20-year veteran of the sheriff's department, a no-nonsense cop. What the fuck is going on here? What is that? Oh, they're fixing the door? Who had deep empathy for victims of sexual assault and worked relentlessly to obtain justice for her victims. As soon as she entered the interrogation room, Hendricks tried to gain Junk Food Joey D's trust by appearing helpful. She told him she would try to get a hold of his wife and needed her number. Junk Food Joey D stated that the number could be found in the phone the police had confiscated. When she asked for the passcode to get the number, Junk Food Joey D, still playing games, claimed he didn't know the password to his own phone. Alright, so interesting, because I've done this with the police too. When they ask for my phone and try to get into my phone, I tell them I forgot the password. Because unless you're going to waterboard me, I'm simply not going to tell you what the password is. And he's trying to do that. The question is, why is he trying to do that? Is there something incriminating on the phone? What could that be? We'll never really know. I don't think. You know, unless they dump the hard drive of the phone, which I don't think is ever going to happen. But yeah, makes you wonder what's in Junk Food Joey D's phone there. D'Angelo then said, all these things that they say I did a long time ago. I need an attorney, right? An attorney. Okay. Anybody remember EAR's stuttering when he said, I am going to go eat some cheese. Eat some cheese. And he said, he also says, I'll slip this knife into you while I'm looky for money. Okay? So he does stutter, And he appears to stutter like the same way in real life. He stammers over the same words over and over again, and it does indicate to us, yet again, more circumstantial evidence that Junk Food Joey is responsible for at least those attacks, and definitely all the DNA ones. So, for people that, oh, there's no DNA in the Sacramento cases, it's like, yeah, but look at all these other things that show that it's clearly him. All those things that they say, I did a long time ago. I need an attorney, right? An attorney. That's the same fucking shit as, well, I'm looky for money, for money. Okay. Are you asking me a question? That's up to you, okay? She responded. I need an attorney, I guess. If Junk Food Joey D explicitly asked for a lawyer, the interview would end and Hendricks would lose her chance to get anything useful out of him. She headed back to the monitoring room. We had one more tactic we wanted to try. Junk Food Joey D, his mouth agape and his eyes staring off into space, barely moved as Sergeant Clark and investigator Steve Rhodes walked into the interrogation room together. The night before Junk Food Joey D was taken into police custody, we'd informed our colleagues at the Ventura County District Attorney's Office of the impending arrest. Ventura County was the only DA's office with which we shared the news because it had provided key DNA evidence to help us solve the case. It wasn't even Ventura that did that. I mean, it was Ventura, but it wasn't. It was one particular medical examiner in Ventura County who saved the day with that sample. It was one fucking medical examiner who saved a duplicate of the Charlene Smith vaginal swab from that case. And it wasn't the district attorney. In fact, the district attorney was a fucking train wreck in Ventura and tried to prosecute Joe Alsip for that crime, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Obviously, that plan didn't work, and Ventura completely botched their investigation, up to and including administering a lie detector test to Jen Carroll, who was an 18-year-old girl, and could not have ejaculated inside anyone or beat them to death with firing wood, and wouldn't, and that's retarded. They actually suspected her, which is stupid. Okay. So, again, it wasn't really Ventura district attorney that kept that semen swab. It was one medical examiner in the autopsy room. Okay, so let's keep moving. They sent investigator Rhodes to Sacramento the moment Junk Food Joey D was in our hands. Rhodes' style was loud and aggressive, direct and to the point. We hoped he'd be the perfect foil in our good cop, bad cop routine. This is why you just need to waterboard these people, you know? Clark said, I was told that you had mentioned a lawyer. That's a decision for you to make. It's not something that I can do for you. By the way, this is investigator Steve Rhodes, who drove up from Ventura to speak with you. Other detectives from throughout California are on their way and would like to speak to you, but the bottom line is, if you want to talk to them, that's something that we can make happen. If you'd like to talk to this detective, it's up to what you want to do here. Any thoughts? Again, no response. Rhodes, who had driven 8 hours straight for a chance to interview Junk Food Joey D, jumped right in. Do you remember being in Ventura? D'Angelo shook his head. Rhodes began to rattle off details of the murders of Charlene and Lyman Smith. D'Angelo remained defiant. I didn't do any of this stuff. Looky for money, eat some cheese, right? Okay, same guy, Sacramento rapist. Without skipping a beat, Rhodes leaned in close to the killer. Well, the DNA says differently. Your DNA is inside of Charlene, your semen is inside of her, you had sex with that woman. Okay. This is why all this other shit that they're trying to find out is irrelevant. It's game, set, match with DNA. They have a 1 in septillion match that he's the Erons. So it's over for him. But of course they want to know the truth in this case, like many of us do, and we want to figure out what else happened. But yeah, his semen's inside Charlene Smith. So that's game over. Where? D'Angelo asked meekly, trying to regain his composure. In Ventura, March 13th, 1980. In a scolding tone, Rhodes continued, we spoke to your wife, Sharon. We told her that you wanted to see her, and she said she didn't want to see you. It was a lie, part of a psychological ploy to make Junk Food Joey D feel isolated. After confronting Junk Food Joey D for several minutes more, Rhodes and Clark left the room. Within minutes, Junk Food Dee began talking to himself, and over the next 3 hours, he made puzzling statements about his struggle against an unidentified him. I pushed him off. I got stronger, and now I am, and I pushed him off, and that was the happiest day of my life. Okay, bullshit. I see now what he did to me. I took control of myself. I really controlled myself, and not him. He used to control me. I'm in control. My children, look at, guys can see here the control issues of the Erons. My children all suffering so bad, unintelligible, broken mics. So good, unintelligible, broken mics. They're all suffering, aren't they? But he's evil, broken microphones in Sacramento self. It's so shameful, broken microphones. I did all that. All these years, I was too weak. I was too weak to stand up to him. I don't remember any of it. That's such bullshit sob story, fake nonsense. Never happened. Startlingly, Junk Food Joey Angelo admitted aloud that Junk Food D, that he had committed the crimes. I did all that. I didn't have the strength to push him out. He made me. He went with me. It was like in my head. I mean, he's a part of me. I didn't want to do those things. I pushed Jerry out and had a happy life. I did all those things. I destroyed all their lives. I raped. So now I gotta pay the price. D'Angelo was claiming that an alter ego named Jerry had made him hurt, rape, and kill his victims. Was he crazy, or was he just pretending to be? Okay, so he's obviously full of shit. That's a dumb question. Jerry never existed. We know that because we know that this individual took the greatest types of tactical precautions to get away with his crimes. He meticulously organized and arranged things, and he was the special forces of serial killers, and there's absolutely no chance that he was fighting Jerry while he was arranging the geographical layout of the Withun crime. That's retarded, and everyone knows that. Okay, so that's the end of that segment of Iran's news. Dr. Pepper, guys. Very interesting. It makes you recognize that maybe we can start reassessing some of these Sacramento crimes based on whether or not there's Dr. Pepper there. How often was Dr. Pepper brought to the crime scene? Was it brought to all 53 rapes? Was it brought to, 52 attacks? I mean, what's going on with Dr. Pepper? How often is Dr. Pepper brought to the crime scene? So we need some more information from them. But I'm impressed by the original investigators of the case and the contemporary investigators of the case for never leaking that information. We never heard that before, and this is a very well-documented case. Might explain why these police reports are not available. So, okay, so this is the TMZ article, and of course this is what TMZ got out of it. Because they're very juvenile, but at the same time, it does have evidentiary value, and that's why I'm going to be talking about it today at all. If this was as truly irrelevant as it mostly is, then I wouldn't even address it on Iran's news, but there is value in this piece of information. We received, for the first time, folks, the official district attorney's office confirmation that the Irans has a micropenis. That has been rumored, that has been largely believed for many years, but now we've actually received the final official confirmation Irans did have a micropenis, according to the district attorney and the court record. Now, I don't say that to try to make fun of the offender, because that's what ended up happening, was people heard this information like, oh, let's ridicule. Okay, this is the main thing that I want to get across with everybody. Junk Food Joey is such a bad guy that there are other things that make him look a lot worse than this. However, this information is extremely valuable, because if you have an East Area rapist attack, and the offender has an average, unremarkably normally sized, quote, male organ, then it is not an EAR crime. We know that now. Because there were EAR crimes where the offender did not have a micropenis. There are. I don't know which ones they are. But there were EAR crimes where victims recounted to the investigators that there was nothing abnormal about the offender's penis size. Those crimes can't be Iran's. So, Now, we do have reports that he assaulted an EAR victim with a dildo, but also that crime, that victim was able to differentiate between what was his actual penis and what was a sex toy. Okay? So there is nothing convincing in Iran's attempting to emulate fake penises. If you have an EAR crime and the offender does not have a micropenis, it's not an EAR crime. We now know that. And that, I don't know what the ramifications of this are going to be. I don't know what the implications of this are going to be. We're going to have to go back through the EAR case file yet again and say which crimes don't have a micropenis. Because the ones that don't have a micropenis is not D'Angelo. And there might be some seriously scary implications going on here. I don't know what they are. You know, we might find that one of the most textbook canonical EAR crimes of all time from Sacramento is not an EAR rape. And we can't argue with the facts. If EAR has a micropenis, which has now been confirmed, then we can't argue the science. Let's continue forward. This is why I bring this up. I'm not bringing this up to make fun of Junk Food Joey D. There's better things to make fun of him about. He's a terrible fucking terrorist, bad guy, horrible person. And, you know, even worse is that the criminal offenses that he did were a conscious decision. He chose to go and beat an 18-year-old girl's face into oblivion with a pipe wrench. Okay? He decided to do that. He didn't decide what his, you know, anatomy was going to be like. And the only value that this information carries for us is that it has evidentiary value and it has weight to it that allows us to assess which crimes in the canonical record are and are not East Area Rapist attacks. That's why I bring it up. There's way worse stuff that Junk Food Joey, I don't even care about what his penis is. Okay, whatever, that's fine. But if we have an EAR crime and the victim says, oh, this is the average size penis, it's not him. Keep moving. And make no mistake, guys, there is no uncertainty. Did he keep up with it? How long after Junk Food Joey D started his crimes did you keep up with it? I don't know what that means. Not sure what that means. Microbrain along with micropenis. Yeah, I mean, well, micro soul based, you know, and this guy's so terrible. He's just such a bad person that I don't even really care what his penis is like. I care more about the decisions that he made as a human being, and they were terrible ones. They were evil, disgusting ones. The Golden State Killer was brought... fuck, I accidentally did it, guys. Whoops. The Bleep was brought to justice in part because of a distinctive micro-pee-pee, and a new book about his capture details just how small his micro-pee-pee is, smaller than a pinky finger. TMZ obtained a copy of Sacramento County District Attorney Thien Ho's new book, The People versus the Erons, or Bleep. And there's a big focus on Junk Food Joey D's small micro-pee. Ho is writing about law enforcement obtaining... Thien Ho, would you please change your last name before we continue? Is writing about law enforcement obtaining circumstantial evidence to corroborate victim testimony about D'Angelo's micro-pee-pee, and he recalls how a police photographer was instructed to take photos of D'Angelo's pee-pee from multiple angles. Writing about law enforcement obtaining circumstantial evidence. Yeah. So, again, we've heard this before. We know that this is true. We've heard this from all the victims. It's just very micro, small penis. Oh, when you started studying the case? Oh, decades. I mean, Junk Food Joey's been offending since the 70s. Or earlier, maybe. But for all intents and purposes, Vasily Ransacker starts up in 74, basically. Obviously, there's probably offenses before that. I'm not here to argue with you guys about non-canonical crimes. But let's say the East Area Rapist first attack is June 18th, 1976. Canonically. Okay, there's other offenses, so don't freak out. But I didn't get into this until 2024, so that's a long time later. No, 2023, I guess. Maybe 2024. It must be 2024, because when I wrote New Cokes, the record, and the documentary actually makes no mention of Eurons. So it wasn't until after the release of that documentary that I deep dove this case. So that gives you a timeline. The DA says the photographer got on his knees to snap Junk Food Joey D's genitalia, but grew frustrated after several failed attempts. Thien Ho says a detective threw up his hands in the air in exasperation and barked over the intercom, "There's nothing there." Thien Ho says D'Angelo was directed to spread his legs and pull back the foreskin, and when the photographer got the, quote, money shot, they say, it proved just how small Junk Fu Joey's manhood was, smaller than the circumference of a dime, and its length is equal to the tip of your pinky. What we've known about Junk Fu Joey's boner since the time that East Area Rapist attacks were occurring, and when I say boner, I'm not trying to be shocking, I mean his erection, that when he was erect, it was about the size of a roll of dimes. We've known that. So, and its length equal to the tip of your... So, I'm not sure if that's accurate. This is the tip of my pinky. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's possible. Anyway. Junk Fu Joey D terrorized California in the 1970s and 80s, murdering 13 people and raping 50 in a series of horrific crimes, but he wasn't busted until April 2018 after being identified by crime scene DNA. The notorious serial killer is now serving a life sentence without parole. So people, of course, are on here saying, no wonder he was so angry. When you don't have a job, what else is there to do? Oh, this is someone else. So similar to Trump. So few of the commoners here can relate because they are also coming up short. So he and Harvey have something in common, pwned. I thought they were describing Trump when I realized it was this guy. So all these just various comments. Someone says, how is this relevant to anything? That's a good question, Plus Power. It's actually very relevant because it allows us to assess which crimes are actually Junk Fu Joey D and which ones aren't. Because we've always known that there were some crimes in the record, in the archive, that were committed by an offender with an average sized penis, and so we've therefore suspected that those are not EAR crimes. But now we actually have the confirmation from the district attorney that he does have a micropenis, and so therefore any crime that doesn't have a micropenis is not D'Angelo, no matter how good the rest of it looks as being D'Angelo. Okay. BB, you have vape. BB. BB, you bring me vape, BB.
Even though I'm pretty successful with the business, adding a mortgage is a big deal.
How are you going to reach it? I love it. So, Plus Power, it is relevant. We do actually have some evidentiary reasoning behind why we would talk about this in the first place. Because, guys, you know, I'm the first to tell you, I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon here of that and be like, oh, you're on says a micropenis. I'm only going to talk about that if it's relevant to the case, and it is, in one respect. What TMZ is doing is that TMZ is just trying to fucking, you know, be juvenile. They don't care about any of these fucking cases. They don't know shit about them. They don't care, whatever. There's absolutely no background in this case. But they're doing it for juvenile comedic purposes. I'm doing it because we need to go back through the case file and find out which ones of these crimes were committed by an offender with an average size penis. Because those aren't EAR. And we can strike them from the record. So, that has been Iran's news for the day, folks. I'm going to go make the chat and see what's going on here. Zap, did you get me some Cheetos from the grocery store? No, how did you know about that? Yes, Dr. Pepper has to be the all-time best soft drink of the original majors. What at Frosty and Old Time Root Beer? Those were... Yeah, I agree. I love Cheetos. No, not Cheetos. Dr. Pepper. Reading two things at once. And then Zap, True Romance vape sharing. That is correct. I mean, everything is each other's. Like, this guitar is hers, too. You know, as far as I'm concerned. Let's see if I can show you something here with it. Check this out. I'm really happy about this. Just put the sticker down there on the bridge that says Pan Shot, which is a reference to the movie The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. where James Franco is shooting at the bank teller, and he has a bunch of fucking cooking pans dangling from his chest and head, and he says, "Pan shot." So I put that on the guitar. A good friend of mine, Wayne, donated that sticker. And before we close out, if anyone has Tien Ho's book, People versus the Golden State Killer, and especially if you have this in ebook, PDF, send me that shit. If you don't have it, I don't know. You seen that James Franco movie where he gets stuck in the hole? No. What is that one? Okay. Okay, guys. I think that wraps things up. Oh, look at this. I can sit way up here. Oh, and then I'll almost show you guys just the way the board's coming along here. Stuck in the hole based on a true story. Oh, is it the one where he cuts his arm off or something like that? What is that? This is one of the skinnies from Black Hawk Down. He's wanted for shooting down American helicopters, and he has an RPG on his back. So he's a skinny, and he looks like that. And then, wait. Oh, that one. Is it? I just guessed. No, I don't think so. Maybe I saw it. I can't remember. But yeah, he cuts his arm off with a pocket knife. It's pretty intense. Just meant to be a horror movie, I guess. It's not really, I mean, whatever. And then this, of course, is not the... So here's the board is coming along. I'll take you guys on a little tour of the board here. Show you guys what's going on with it. This is the New Cokes Live thing, and you can see Iran's getting blown away by a nuclear bomb up there. Then we have Cooperite. Then we have Presidio Heights composite sketch drawn by me. This is the Vindication of Don Chaney. And then this is one of the skinnies from Black Hawk Down. Okay. So, there we go. And that's been Iran's news.